I should probably say what the video's about. Hey friends, it's your good friend Tim Kimball Smith, and today I'm kind of not here for Spotify Wrapped. I'm here for first year Wrapped on my experience at Wilfrid Laurier University at the Brantford campus. Going back to school and going to Laurier Brantford has definitely been an experience. It's been quite the adjustment as someone in their 30s, early 30s, thank you very much. Changing careers, changing fields, paying for it. So we'll talk about that adjustment. I feel like I should also say as a disclaimer, I got A's in my first semester. So I'm not coming at this from a place of complaining. I'm not angry. I'm not bitter because I didn't do well. Like, I did very well. And I think that gives me a pretty balanced approach. This has definitely been an experience, and we're going to unpack it and kind of my thoughts and just some immediate thoughts. And it'll be interesting to see how this changes in the future. Before we go too far, make sure you like and subscribe for all things higher ed, business, mental health, and photography and life. Okay, reflecting on my first semester experience, here's the first thing I want to say. I hate my campus. I don't like the Laurier Brantford campus. And I want to start here. A lot of people talk about, and Laurier Brantford gets a bad rap for there being people who are experiencing homelessness or addiction in the downtown core. My problem is actually with the people who complain about that. Now, I've lived in Toronto and LA and even around like Guelph, where I hail from. So it's not the first time I've seen it. So I don't understand why it's a problem if you've ever seen it before. Though someone did recently share with me, like, a lot of 17 and 18-year-olds who, especially if they live like in rural areas, have never seen that. And that's why they complain about it. But honestly, like, that is not actually has had nothing to do with my concerns with the campus. If you have concerns or you're worried about like the people who experience homelessness or addiction, one, get over yourself, and two, know that like they keep to themselves. They don't really talk to anybody. They don't get in the way, so it doesn't actually disturb your life at all. But I do have a lot of other concerns about the campus. Laurier Brantford has a complete lack of amenities. There's not as many bathrooms. There's no garbage. There's like barely any garbage cans. The Wi-Fi is inconsistent. There's like nowhere to eat. There's no real like great study spots. The aesthetic isn't really there. Like, I think of like even the Laurier like Waterloo campus is beautiful and has lots of different areas to work out of. I am also familiar with like the University of Guelph. That's a beautiful campus. We don't really have that, and that bugs me. There's also a lack of staffing. So quick true story, in my social work class, our prof realized that the door was broken. So, while we're filing in and before class starts, he emails building maintenance to say like, hey, the door is broken. Can you please send someone at some point to fix the door? He got an autoresponder and he was so mad, and he wanted to illustrate a point that he showed us the autoresponder email. The autoresponder email from Building Resources basically said, we have, due to staff infrastructure changes, is what they said, we will not be able to provide any kind of ETA on your service request, and we cannot provide a ticket with an expected outcome date. Like, I know that, like, at the time of recording, higher ed and colleges and universities are in a lot of trouble. There's a lot of, like, funding difficulties, but, like, oh my god, to admit that in an autoresponder? Awkward! So that kind of illustrates what our campus is like and some of the staffing challenges. I will also say, like, kind of related to the campus, the school is not student-centric. Like, they are out to make a buck and to do what they gotta, and that just shows up in some ways that have kind of not made for a great first semester experience. You may recall from, like, my first week video, like, I couldn't get a student card, because they had advertised dates and times to get a student card, but that wasn't available at Brantford. That was available at Waterloo, because everything is available at Waterloo. They have all the services, and we don't at Brantford. And there's inconsistent processes between like what the website says and what you experience. So like there's a difference in how, for example, you access counseling services at Laurier Brantford versus Waterloo. So those are some of my like out of the gate, when I think of first semester, I have some problems with the campus and student life there. Let's talk about a positive and something I'm absolutely loving. Oh my God, the faculty are fantastic. Funny enough, the previous year before coming to Laurier Brantford, my partner and I came for a campus tour, and this was something that really impressed us on our campus tour. Like, the faculty were really just amazing, really impressed us. They were down to earth, they were kind. Frankly, I knew to ask about, and I was curious about their research areas, and a lot of them had really cool research areas. And now that I'm here at Laurier Brantford, I'm still finding the faculty are amazing. They're so supportive. I find that they're really responsive to what students want. So, for example, in my public health class, 40% of our grade was like weekly graded activities. And someone had kind of made a joke, but then we ran with the joke. And ultimately, our prof took it seriously. Someone had made a joke saying, you should let us do a TikTok, because, most of us are on TikTok and social media, and said, you should let us do a TikTok explaining some kind of course concept as a makeup grade for one of those 5% activities. And the prof kind of thought about it, and then she was like, yeah, I'm down for this. That's one example, but there were a lot of times over the semester where this happened. So the profs were really responsive to students, which was cool to see. I will say going to office hours was a great idea. A lot of them conduct office hours in different ways, as long as you do it the way that they like. Going to office hours was always a great idea. It was a great way to build rapport. So I got to know my profs by going to their office hours for extra support, for having them review my assignments, which definitely contributed to me doing as well as I did. So that was pretty awesome. And I will say, I like the small classes and the small class sizes at Laurier Brantford. So your profs get to know you, they call you by name, they address you by name, and address your goals. I even had, last story, I even had a contract faculty member, and he said he was hired just a couple days before the semester even started. And even he was fantastic. So I'm even when they have to pull in someone last second to teach an online class, they're still finding amazing people. So the faculty are truly fantastic. I gotta say, the faculty, I don't know what's in the water. I don't know how Laurier Brantford is finding top-notch faculty, but I feel like they're all great. Next, for my first semester experience, let's talk about AI use. On the first day of class for my 2 in-person classes, I asked the profs, what's your take on AI use for assignments? And generally, one at Laurier Brantford, and at the time of recording, each prof gets to set their own practices. So, I dropped one class, but that class, and more on dropping a class in a bit, he had said absolutely no generative AI use ever. My public health prof said that there would be 2 in-class assignments where she'd want you to use it as part of learning, but otherwise absolutely no using it. Social work prof said it's okay to get ideas from it, but you can't copy and paste it. So it totally depends on the prof. That said, I saw that it was wild in students. So people that I sat beside in both of my in-person classes, I would watch them use AI to do everything from one person was creating study notes, another person was taking notes from the class. They were audio recording it and having AI summarize it. Another person in I'm not going to say who, I'm not going to say what class, I watched someone write an essay beside me using AI. So that was pretty wild. And I don't know if that was allowed. And I will say, by the end of this, in one class, the one prof who had said don't use it, she was catching a lot of it being used, and she was getting frustrated. So at the end of the semester, she said, I'm going to start throwing down the hammer, and I'm going to start getting people in trouble and filing academic misconduct reports for using AI, because she could tell it was being used. So all that to say, you have to ask, is it okay? When is it okay? How is it okay? And definitely follow those rules. But also, even I, as a student, saw that it was rampant. Not that that's a bad thing, it's just, how much critical thinking are you really using? I'm scared that a day will come when someone becomes a social worker and a therapist, and they type in, my client feels sad from an eating disorder. How should I respond? And AI has to tell them how to respond. Another part of my first semester experience, and it's funny because I told my students this as a teacher, and now I'm on the receiving end of it. I've been learning how to learn, and I've had to learn how to learn. So I figured out I did not have to buy the textbooks that I bought. Frankly, in my public health class, I didn't need that textbook. My first social work class was a weird mixed bag because I needed the textbook for the first half of the class until the midterm, but then I didn't need the textbook afterwards, so it was I bought way too many notebooks. I've not been using notebooks. Turns out the way that I love to create study notes is on my iPad because I like to illustrate them and color them and highlight them. So I didn't need the notebooks that I bought. I've also had to learn how to take good notes. You can't just write down everything. I definitely sat beside a couple of people who wrote down everything, or the one person who just used a microphone, listened, and then had AI summarize everything. No, 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 no. There are way smarter ways to take notes. So I had to learn how to take notes, mainly tying them to like module learning outcomes and course learning outcomes with specifics, because oh my God, do profs love to get you on midterms, tests, essays with specifics. In my notes, I've also had to learn to write like what I call systems of similar things. So like definitions, I now always write the same way. I'll write word equals definition, and then I always include a subpoint with an example. When I have to write like case studies and illustrative examples, learning how to like, okay, if I bold this or if I give it a new line in my notes, so I understand when I go back, what was I thinking when I wrote it? Another part of my first year, first semester experience was dropping a class. So I signed up for this class and it was just absolutely destroying me every way imaginable. It was screwing with my mental health. It was also where I got scared, and this is why I thought it was so smart to drop the class. It was messing with my performance in my other classes. It was my epidemiology class. It was so hard because there was just so much information, and it was a way of thinking that I just wasn't used to, and the questions were being asked in a way that I wasn't used to. So dropping it was just such a good idea. Now, part of dropping it, I learned with dropping a class, you really have to consider a lot of different factors and figure out like, where's the tipping point for you? I came to Laurier Brantford with transfer credits. So I had and have wiggle room to drop classes to not take a few full semesters. But also at the time that I wanted to drop it, I had to go to student advising to figure out like, how much money am I going to be out? How much am I responsible for paying for this? I did drop the class quite late, so I got almost nothing back in terms of the money that I paid. So you kind of have to like balance it out. The other thing with dropping it is like if you take another class, it's really hard to get approved for it's not overload, but maybe it's a course overload where you take more than 5 classes. Or if you take like a course in the summer semester, it is more expensive to take one course on its own versus like 5 courses. Laurier charges per credit, and you get a discount the more credits you take in a semester. So ultimately, after balancing, pros and cons, dropping a class, such a good idea. Another part of my experience, I got a job, which as a self-employed person is so strange to say. I got a job as a research assistant, which was cool. I will say, if you want a job, I think the way that I got the job, one, because I have a unique skill set that impressed a lot of researchers when I was doing interviews, because I applied for a bunch of research assistant jobs, but finding a way to stand out. I sent these folks like multiple emails, not hounding, but a couple emails to get their attention, connected with them on social media. You've got to find a way to stand out. I'm also going to say, like, you've got to be really clear in your goals and your skill sets. My experience, like, with the start of my research assistantship, is that a word? Research assistant? My research assistant job started out kind of rocky, mainly because of me, because I was not as clear as I could be on what my goals were. Also, I was a little unclear in what I really wanted to do and what I really didn't want to do. So, but thank goodness the research team that I work for is phenomenal, and they were so flexible, which again comes back to how amazing the people are at Laurier Brantford. So they were flexible, and we kind of figured out like, what do I actually want to be doing, and what am I actually curious about? What can I actually contribute to this group? And now I think we found this sweet spot, and I'm loving it. What's awesome, I think, about an on-campus job and like a research assisting job, especially if you have like a team that you're working as part of, I just feel connected to something bigger. I don't have as much a sense of community. More on that in a moment. I don't have as much of a sense of community at Laurier Brantford, so being part of a research team gives me a sense of community. Which brings me to my final part of my experience in first year, first semester. I'm gonna admit that I'm lonely. I'm feeling kind of lonely. And it took me a couple months to realize like that was a problem that I was experiencing and to be honest with myself about that experience. There's not as many mature students at Laurier Brantford, and I did go to a mature and transfer student meetup, and it's funny because a lot of mature and transfer students at Laurier Brantford are in the social work program. The problem is they all got to transfer into second and third year because of life experience, because of credits that they had, and I didn't have enough or the right credits to be able to transfer into second year. So I'm surrounded by 17 and 18-year-olds. Don't get me wrong, a bunch of them are really cool, and I've had a lot of fun getting to know them, and I feel like I'm learning again about young people. But I kind of feel like Manny in Ice Age, like, as the only woolly mammoth, which is why I love being part of my research assisting group, my research assisting work, and part of that group, because when I walk into that room for those team meetings, it's like seeing the other mammoths. I'm also, I will say, part of this problem is also I'm a commuter. It is a lot, most students live off campus. Many of us commute. I'm a commuter. So I kind of come and go. I'm also a mature student. Like, I have a life. I still have a job. I have my husband and my family. And so I don't have the same opportunities to network or to stay late for activities the way that other people do. And I will admit, some of the activities that they do are like, I don't want to say for kids, but they're for kids. But apparently, I do hear that like the social life at Laurier Brantford is not the same as other universities. So it's not, I don't think it's just me. I think it is Laurier Brantford. But I will say a part of my first semester experience, I'm lonely. And I'm giving myself permission to say that. At the time of recording, though, I will say we're heading into second semester. First semester, I was only ever on campus 1 day a week for classes. And then once I got my research assistant job, I was on campus once every other week or so for those team meetings. But in second semester, again, at the time of recording, I'm trying to get into an online class, but I'm on campus 4 days a week. So maybe that'll change. Overall, I don't know if I see myself staying here for the full 4 years. Between me, you, whoever you are on the other side of this video, and Beyonce above. Partially because I will say my therapist and I did some great work around embracing that I don't have to finish. If I don't want to, I will not spend 4 years miserable and hating it and going into debt for this. And I will say, like, I will get an educational credential in the next 3 to 4 years, be it my bachelor's of social work or something else. I will do something. I will finish something, but I may not finish at Laurier Brantford. If we kind of just look at the balance of powers, net positive, net negative, I'd say I'm kind of right now having a net negative experience. And I think most of those problems are because it is the Brantford campus. I'm really starting to think, and from the few times that I've been on the Waterloo campus, I have a couple friends there, I'm starting to think that if I were on the Waterloo campus, if the social work program was at the Waterloo campus, I'd be having a different experience. But I think it's because I'm at the Brantford campus and the way Laurier manages their Brantford campus, but we'll see. All honesty, also say, Laurier Brantford does have some great things going for it. And the people are fantastic. The curriculum is phenomenal as well. I love what I'm learning. Oh, I should say this as well. There's a huge diversity of courses you can take, and the general interest things and courses you can take are so cool at Laurier and Laurier Brantford. So I'm loving what I'm learning. I'm loving who I'm learning it from. So I hold space for that. I also recognize, and a lot of people say, first semester is incredibly difficult. And just first year is the hardest. Do whatever you have to survive first year. It gets better from there. So I'm holding out. And those are my thoughts. Comment and let me know your thoughts, or if you have any questions about Laurier Brantford, I'm here to answer those as well. As always, make sure you like and subscribe for all things higher ed, business, mental health, photography, and life. Otherwise, we'll chat soon. Bye for now.